Good evening. Welcome to Eretz Israel. I'm Avraham Shira. We are in the middle of the night, 1:30 in the morning. It's early or it's late. It depends on where you're coming from. That's a good rule for life. Our perspective changes reality. So how you look at things, it's always real because it's your reality at that any given moment. It could be early, it could be late, or both, or neither. If you're above time, then it's nothing to do with time at all. But now we're holding at this level in this Torah, Ayin Hay, which we've been working at for weeks and coming and going. We're at this level of understanding something about now and the future. Very important. And it goes like this: V'china zot, shaberu nitzotzot, the clarification of the sparks, the fallen sparks of creation, the broken letters, the lights, the packets of godly power and energy that are dispersed throughout the entire universe. That clarification means the separation of the good and the evil that came from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It also comes from the deeds of human beings. This clarification of these sparks, the separation where all the good is on one side and all the not good is fallen away. Well, what's the difference between the two sides? One is there's unity on one side and there's disparity and disconnection and machloket on the other side. This clarification is done every day of creation by every person engaged in the process who gives himself over to what we call tikkun olam, the fixing of the world. Ad yom biat Mashiach, until the day of the coming of the Messiah. Ah, wonderful. Now we know what happens until Messiah. We got to keep clarifying good and evil. Well, I think we know that already intuitively, even if we haven't had the merit to look at the books of Rabbi Nachman or the books of any other chassidut or kabbalah. But we need to be told again and again. Still, so until the Mashiach comes, we're engaged in this process of clarification that we've been learning about for quite some time, like 6,000 years or almost, right? And we learned that these sparks are in our food and our drink and in our clothing and in nature and all the levels of nature. And they're giving pleasure to us, so that whether you're eating an ice cream or you're putting on a new coat or you're lounging on the bank of a river, the pleasure is actually the spark itself before it goes into the vessel called ice cream or coat or riverside. And we're clarifying it. So wherever you can go, you can thank God for the pleasure you're having because he's in there. Ad shitkayem, until that day, what day? V'amdu raglav b'yom hahu al har hazetim, on that day when his legs are standing on the Mount of Olives. Why the Mount of Olives? Okay, well, it's the most famous, largest graveyard, perhaps, certainly in Israel, maybe the world. It's a whole mountain of graves. And it's a very, very many famous holy people are buried there. And his legs, it doesn't tell us Mashiach's legs, but we're making an assumption here that his legs will stand on that mountain. Why? Well, we know from the prophet Zechariah that there is a rift going from the Dead Sea all the way straight to Jerusalem, straight through the center of that mountain. And when that mountain splits, as the prophet says, on that day, God's name and himself will be one, that his reputation will match his reality. Now, where's the reputation of anything? Is it in the air? Is it flying around like a banner behind a plane? No, the reputation of a thing is in our mind. That our minds will all be attached to that elevated reputation, the true reputation of the Creator. So he will be standing the El Har Zaitim, and he's bringing down the Arizal from the handwritten Arizal, it says here. Ki ikar tikun anitzotzotu bechinat raglin. And now he steps half a step back and tells us because the essential aspect of this clarification of good and evil is called the clarification of the legs. Why the legs? Because understand, in Kabbalah, we have three major sections of the map of the universe: the head, the torso, and the legs. The human being is only a microcosmic form of the macrocosmic form of the entire universe. The head, the program, the software, the heart, the torso, that which activates those thoughts into positive emotions, or negative for that matter, to make us reach to the legs, which is the place of action. So you have an idea, you get a feeling about the idea, that it's good, you want to do it, and you put on your shoes and get going, and you do it. And that three-stage process is happening everywhere in creation all the time. You just have to know to look for it. Whether you're watching insects on the side of a river, here I am at the river again, I guess, it's a nice place to be. Rabbi Nachman spent many, many hours and weeks and months of his life on a river talking to Hashem. Because we got to get away from people to be able to be good with people. And he understands that. By speaking to Hashem, we get very good with people. We learn to love them over and over again. Okay, so this idea of the legs is the idea of putting the intellectual and emotional power into action. And the final consummation of that is the Mashiach standing with his legs on Har Zaitim. Now, if this mountain's going to split, I hope he's standing in the right place on the mountain, If he's standing in the middle of the split, it's going to have to be very acrobatic. Now, Ki Torah utfilah en bechinat amidah, prayer and Torah learning are both connected to the idea of amidah, standing. Because, of course, we pray when we stand. And we also learn, in the ancient days, nobody sat down to learn Torah. They were always standing. And if you notice, you do your best thinking when you're standing, because you're forcing your body to pump the blood more. And that activity itself causes better thought, because the movement of the blood is our life force. So being sluggish and sitting around on the couch is not the best way to produce your best work. And this idea of standing, the legs, which is bringing power, spiritual power into physical action, of Torah, it says, God said to Moses, here you will stand with me. And that was actually a little bit of a cryptic prophecy of God to Moses, that you're going to be standing up here with me, Moses, pretty soon. You're not going to stay down there on earth forever. And they were gathered together, fixed in place at the base of the mountain. Now that standing together at the base of the mountain, yityatzuvu, is a verb. Yitzivut is fixed in place. It's the easiest translation I can come up with, but it really means dvekut. You're so astounded and in awe of God, you can't move. Utfila, also connected to the idea of the legs. V'yamod Pinchas v'yifalel. Pinchas stood up in front of the whole community of the elders, in front of Moses and the prophets and the Kohanim, and he prayed. And that was before, of course, the great act of let's call it holy vengeance that Pinchas enacted. And this is the idea of righteousness will go before him. Again, going is the idea of the legs. Okay, well, where's he going with this all idea? Hang on. Because when you're speaking Torah or tefillah, you're speaking righteousness, whether it's your own words or not. And tzedek really can be translated as justice too. As it is written, tzedek yitaberun, we should speak justice. Don't speak something besides justice. Now, if we want to hear something besides justice, well, all we have to do is turn on the media. Because everybody's got a side and everybody's got an angle and everybody's got a position about something that, well, it may or may not be just and fair. And by speaking justice, we fix the legs. We fix this power to bring energy into the physical world. Justice will go before him. Remember, we're talking about Mashiach now. He will be standing in the mountain. Justice will come from him. Right and not wrong. Truth. And through this, Zochim lebechinat v'amdu raglav b'yomahu. And through that, he will stand on the mountain. His legs will stand on the mountain. Okay. So it's not a hard picture to grasp. This great day, we're standing on the mountain. But I always ask, what's going to be the day after Mashiach? What do we do when we get up? We still have to wash our hands, say our blessings, praise Hashem, do the basics, eat breakfast probably. Maybe you won't be so hungry. What do we do the day after Mashiach? You know, it's an interesting question. It means, I can call my boss and say I ain't coming in. Does it mean, no, I'm not going to yeshiva today. I can learn here. It's fine. Does it mean I don't really have to pray anymore because the world is fixed? All those sparks, those fallen capsules of holy desire have been elevated. It could, maybe not. Let's see. And this is the idea of Shutta Dinuka. This is the idea of the silliness of the child. And what does that mean? Well, look at and well, the silliness of the child is a reference. He says right here, "Eini mevin klal." It doesn't mean Rabbi Natan's writing down, I don't understand anything, because he does often write, this Torah is not making sense to me. And that shows you his level of honesty, that he published that for hundreds of thousands of people to read. So it's a very important quality that we should all have, to be able to say, I don't understand. It means we're fallen. It means I don't understand the text itself. But here, it also means any mevin klal. It's the idea of the absence of our intellect, our everyday intellect, the intellect that precedes divine inspiration. Because we've got to get rid of the way we think of things to think of things the way God thinks of things. Because before this great day, when the sparks are still being clarified, that is to say, as before the power of that clarification comes out in our speech. Because the whole point of speech is to bring out that tzedek taberun, that justice will come out of our mouths. But for justice to come out of our mouths, we have to have done the clarification of good and evil, or we're going to have a lot of admixtures in our speech. And when this happens, this clarification, when we're in the process and it's before the messianic revelation, we're still working towards that holy speech of clarifying the good and evil. But then, azai solea al irecho, because before the fixing, it's still Jacob limping on his thigh. Of course, this is an allusion to when Jacob fought the angel of Esav at the Yabok, the river that separated Jacob from his family at the time of the crossing into Eretz Israel. Jacob got hit on the thigh, on the hamstring, and That's why, by the way, we don't eat the gid and nashe, which is, I think, some people say it's the filet mignon. Oh, well, we'll have to give up one steak out of the whole cow. Wow. Okay. Well, no, but here it's a representation of a level before the perfection. The idea of limping is the idea my going is not yet perfect. That means there's still what to be repaired. Shehu b'chinet pagam ha'raglin, and this is, he says it, the defect to the legs, which is before the idea of Moshe, of Mashiach, who is Moshe, right, standing on that mountain. And then when we reach the clarification, and then the words come out in holiness, and these are words that when you hear them, they change you. They're not simple, oh, he's saying something interesting, that's nice, let's listen to Avraham. Okay, very nice, I'm glad you do. But these types of words we're talking about here that are coming out with the fire and the purity of the holiness of the one who spoke the world into existence and is doing so every moment and creates holy speech. That is the idea of the building of the rib. When Adam's rib was, his internal essence was extracted to create the spiritual power called Chava, the first woman. So he's playing on the word Selah. So Leah is limp, but the same letters is Selah, the rib. Of course, we know it's not a physical rib per se, although it does kind of sound like, that God tapped into Adam's stem cell to create Chava, which, I don't think I'm qualified to say that that is the case, but it might be. But nonetheless, Chava was made from the internal essence of Adam, which is speech. That's why Chava got 9/10 of human speech. That is the female power called Nukva. The feminine received 9/10 of speech. And that's the fixing, the building of Chava, the building of speech is the fixing of Jacob limping because he was struck by Esav, who was, of course, the dominant power of all dominant powers throughout the Jewish exile. Now, Levi, hetiach devarim klape mala ve'etla. And that also connects to a piece of Talmud that tells us about a sage called Levi. It's not Levi ben Yaakov, it's a later day Levi. And he was a sage, and he was a powerful person. And it says in his prayer, hetiach klape mala. The Talmud explains that there Levi is, hetiach devarim is like, a tayach in modern Hebrew is a guy who takes the mellet. Okay, now I'm switching to Hebrew. Takes the cement on his mallet and he throws it on the wall, right? You throw that cement on the wall to cover the wall with this kind of rough coat of cement. It's a metaphor for throwing speech at God. And that is not the appropriate way to talk to God. And it says that Levi did that. He was probably in an emotional state of some kind. And in Ma'alev Itla, and he was stricken at this idea of speech that wasn't proper. And that is the same idea. Itla is Aramaic for Tzolea, and he's limping. Okay? So, if a person is limping, he should ask himself, if we base it on Levi, maybe I wasn't praying properly to Hashem. Maybe I wasn't talking with the proper respect. Or maybe I haven't been praying at all. Or maybe my prayer has been a little bit weak. This is how we use kabbalah to learn about ourselves, but with kindness, with love of ourselves, of our holy souls. But you can learn but from your body. Mi basari echeza elokai. This was Job, right, who was stricken more than any man, and he said, "From my flesh I will see God." In other words, from our bodies we can read the messages of God, and that's what we're doing right here. And Rabbi Nachman is showing us how. Ki mechamat shepegama dibor, because of this defect in dibor, as evidenced by Levi, alken itla, and therefore he was stricken by in the leg. Ki nishar b'chinat tzolea orecho, because he remained in that category of limping on his thigh. Shehu b'chinat pegama dibor, which dibor is your extension of your mouth, of your mind, going through all the processes of the brain out your mouth and into the world. So too your legs are considered in Kabbalah the extension of your torso out into the world that gives you power to operate in this world. Okay, so with tzrichim ledaber b'torah v'tefillah, and we know that we have to speak words of prayer and Torah ad sheyeh aguf batel v'efes, until our bodies have no more power. That's when you know you've gotten there, and it sounds pretty awesome. It is awesome, let's face it, but it's not out of reach. It's because, a guy who goes to the gym and works out till he can't work out anymore, he's doing it, just not in prayer. He's doing it with his hands and the weights, etc., etc. Or a swimmer, or, well, everybody probably but a golfer. Maybe, I don't know, golfers too. But the point you see is, that's an inside joke. The point, though, of course, is to put all your being into the prayer or into the Torah. And when you put all your being into it, there's nothing left of your body. There's no power left. You can barely stand. And that's the sign that you've done this tikkun, to go from before and after the gathering of the sparks, the completion of that process, and entering what we want to call the messianic hera, the illumination of that level of having done the repair. Okay? And you could do it today. You could. You really could. Just put all your being into your prayer, into your Torah. All your being. Like you're lifting the big weights, at the gym. But the next day we're going to have to do it again. Because until he's standing up on Har HaZeitim, we're not sure what's going to be. Okay? But we're still asking the question, remember, because the idea of this class was, what's after he's standing on the mountain? Well, what's after is you get that repair of good and evil, and you have all good. All good means evil is like this bad foreign memory. Maybe not even so bad, but it's definitely something you don't want to go back to. And the past, and we're not talking about the evil, the external evil that it's so easy to identify, but we're talking about our own traits. We're talking about our own behavior. Our own way of being in the world changes when you become an all good person. Because all of us are mixtures of good and evil. But when you become all good, when you've done this completion, then your prayer has that holiness, your Torah has that holiness of speech, your being radiates that. However, if you taste it once, you'll know it the next time you come. And because all of this, I'll take love. Okay, we read this. But until the goof is nothing nullified. Because when nullified, then all your power is focused. It's like a laser. Is in my day work, and part of me is in my yeshiva, and part of me is in prayer, and part of me is in talking to the guy who's fixing the lawnmower. No, it's totally focused energy on one thing. That's where your greatest results are. That's that laser. And then the creation of Chava and Adam is reunified. And that's the idea of Hayu lebasar chad. They became one flesh. Chava and Adam were one flesh. God extracted her essence, and then he brought them back together. Sheyeh aguf echad im hadibur, that our words and our bodies are one together. Now, I believe that many people have experienced this. They just didn't know how to define it according to Kabbalistic terms. However, when you reach this level that he's talking about, your body and your words are one. There's no inner contradictions anymore. You're not thinking one thing and saying another. You're not remembering something from the past that's inhibiting you from being more honest in the future. And all the other little tweaks that we got to make to become true people, inside and out. But tocho kabaro, they said in the Beit Midrash, Rabbi Yehuda, anybody who's tocho is not baro, go outside. You can't stay in here and learn our Beit Midrash, because inside here is this great light of the oneness of your being. It doesn't say you have to know everything. What you have to do is be completely true. And with that level of speech, where your inner and your outer selves are one. Shehu bechinat chava. And this is this idea of where your speech and your body are one, is the idea of chava. And chava, Eve, had 9/10 of the speech already going for her. That's why you see women are more spiritual in general. Now, men have a tremendous spiritual potential. But women by nature are more spiritual because they have to give forth life, as does our Creator. And this is written, Laila Laila Yechave Da'at. Night to night gives forth knowledge. And as it is explained there, that it becomes this rib, this essential part of the person's being, the giving forth of knowledge, that your knowledge it's flowing from you without editing, without self-consciousness, without recriminations, without shame, without feeling embarrassed because maybe I'm saying something that hurts somebody's feelings, which, it's not a bad thing to consider other people's feelings. Let's face it, that's a very good thing. However, when you go up to speak in front of people, you want to be all there, your entire being. As a therapist, I feel that's my job every time I sit down with somebody. He built that rib. He repeats the idea. And when they built Chava, and then he brought them back together, they were one. Da'inu, shitbatel aguf legamre, and the body is nullified. Ka'ayin uva efes, like nothing, and efes is zero, but the same idea. Al yedei diborei Torah tefillah, that our Torah and prayer cancel out the body. And this level of canceling out the body in Torah and prayer, it's not easy. Let's not fool ourselves. But it's how much effort you make in the activity itself. And not simply forcing yourself to learn and pray until you fall from the stender, right? It's the amount of energy you put into it. Levatel haguf legamri, and to cancel the body, and that is awe, as it is written by our sages, guf kasha pachad shovero, that when you have a tough body, some people have, their bodies are very strong, very tough, meaning that they're resilient to spiritual influence. Okay, spiritual influence meaning that my body will listen to me when I say, no, you're not going to do that now. No, you're not going to go there now. No, don't look there. No, don't touch that. You're giving when your body listens to what your higher soul is telling you. So the pachad, or the difficulty of the body, is broken by the fear that comes when you have pachad yitzhak, the fear, the awe, really, of God. Upachad hu bechinat pachad yitzhak, right? Okay, but we still want to answer our question. What comes after Mashiach? Well, this next paragraph is the final of this whole Torah. We're going to go through it. It's a recap of the original headline of the Torah with the understandings and insights he's been giving us all along. God will bless us. Shalom. This is the idea of peace. Peace, you notice, is always at the end of Jewish prayers because it's the end game. We just want peace, inner peace, outer peace. Ki lo matzah Kodesh Baruch Hu kli machzik bracha. Hashem has not found no vessel that will hold blessing ela shalom. Rather, peace is the greatest, most powerful vessel that holds blessing. Peace holds blessing. So, here's a vessel. Here's my coffee. Chaim. This vessel, it's at peace with itself. It is a glass vessel. Not more, not less. It's not judging itself. It's not checking how good it looks in the mirror. It does its job, holding the blessing. In this case, some hand-ground Colombian coffee with coconut milk. Now, if I pour too much, I lose peace. There's no more peace. It's overflowing. And if I don't put enough in the cup to get a drink to make even the blessing on the coffee, then I'm also not at peace, because now I got to get more coffee to be able to make the blessing. Now, this is a rather rudimentary example, but the idea is that if you don't have peace and you have blessing, you will waste your money. You will waste your love. You will waste your time. Because inner peace gives you the power of setting your own parameters. When you have peace, you know when to go out into a relationship and when to stop. When you have peace, you know when to stop writing things about JC on a Jewish program. When you have inner peace, you know when to say what you need to say and nothing more. When you have peace, you know when it's time to go to work and when it's time to come home. When you have peace, you know when to talk to God and when to be quiet. And see, all of those things are the sign of blessing. And the ultimate blessing is that inner insight to know what you need to do every moment of your day without even thinking about it. And that is when you start to channel the upper powers of your divine soul. So this blessing that we all want blessing, but we need to get the peace. The blessing will come if we can get that peace. And this is what happens the day after Mashiach stands on that mountain down the road. There's peace. People stop fighting about silly things. People stop arguing in the market. People stop fighting with their loved ones and their neighbors, and most importantly, themselves. We just throw in the towel and accept a certain level of inner peace and oneness that is derived from this whole extraction of our spiritual power that breaks the body's arrogance, if you will, and we receive the light of the soul as the true master of our being. V'yiru, and they will see him. Call Afse Aretz is the end of the pasuk, which is very interesting when you apply it to Mashiach. Yiru, they will see him. All the extremities of the land. It will be an international event when he stands on that mountain, I guarantee you. CNN will be there even though they don't want to believe. Even the New York Times will not be there. Yiru, they will see him from all the extremities of the earth. How else can everybody see what's going on Har Zeitim unless all the world's cameras are focused there? And this is the awe. They will get the awe, whether they're sitting in a hut, in Zimbabwe, or they're sitting on the top of their penthouse in Manhattan. And the awe will cause this cancellation. That's too fancy. Will cancel the arrogance of the body. Legamre. Torah, through this words of Torah and prayer. So each of us is doing this on our own personal level every day through our service of Torah and Tefillah. So this is all the Afse Aretz. Now he turns this into an interesting noun. Ayinu shekol artziut, that all our materialism. The word Aretz is land, but it's also, when you make it Artziut, is our materialism, same efes va'ayin, that our physical lust will be canceled. It doesn't mean we're going to stop eating and drinking. It just means we're not going to be doing it with the obsessive nature of all the advertising wants us to spend more on everything. It will just be done because that's what you do. When you eat, you eat. But you don't make a big deal out of it. You don't make a big deal out of your clothes. You don't make a big deal out of your car. You don't make a big deal out of anything material. That's one of the secrets to peace. And which the peace, remember, is what? The vessel that holds blessing. Ki nitbatlim legamre, they will be canceled out, they will be nullified. Va'azai zochim lebracha, then we will all, the entire world will receive the innate blessing that is in the world, shu bechinat shalom, which is from this vessel of peace, bechinat yivarachenu elokim, and that is God will bless us because we have the peace, and that peace will hold blessing. So what comes after Mashiach? Peace. But it's a kind of peace that you can get it yourself. The problem is that when you go out in the world's going to try to get it from you the first time, someone cuts you off in traffic or somebody calls you and says something unkind. But it doesn't matter. We need to have the individual experience to understand and extrapolate into a cosmic global experience, because that's what Mashiach's coming. Mashiach's coming not here so that we don't have to write checks anymore and we don't have to go to work. That may or may not be, depending on what you do. Mashiach might want you to go to work and work longer hours. But that's not the point. The point is the peace that creates the vessel for blessing, that causes the light to come down on Jerusalem, and the whole world will see. And then there'll be no need for all this political rabble, for all this ridiculous amounts of energy and time that is spent on what other people are doing. Because it's really about each person and God. And when we can focus on that relationship and forget about all the celebrity and all the wealth and all the other stuff that the internet is throwing at us, we come home to ourselves, because that's where we find our Creator. In your heart and in your mind, and in your being and in your family, and very close to home. So I hope we're ready for the peace and the blessing, because that's what we're here for. And I bless you all to have it today in your own little way, and maybe not so little. It depends on who you are. But when you get it, you'll know it. And when you have it, other people will know that you have it, and they will feel it, and they will bless you, and you will bless them. And then we're being the divine images that we were created to be. God bless you all. We'll continue this series. Well, tomorrow is exciting. We start a new Torah, Ayin Vav, 76. So we'll see what Rabbi Nachman has to offer then. Until then, may you be blessed with peace and vision and understanding. Have a great day.